Hey everyone! Tonight we're ditching Wi-Fi, modern plumbing, and every single convenience you take for granted to journey way, way back to the Stone Age. Yes, that glorious era when your only possessions were a stick, some animal hides, and the vague hope you wouldn't get eaten before sunset. But before you start imagining yourself as some rugged survivalist hero, let me stop you right there. This is not a movie. There's no epic soundtrack, no slow-motion hunting montage. This is reality. Cold, uncomfortable, and aggressively unsympathetic. So, tonight we're asking, what would happen if you had to survive just one day in the Stone Age? Spoiler. It doesn't end with you thriving as a tribal leader. It ends with you wondering how your ancestors didn't all just collectively give up. But before we jump headfirst into the mud, the bugs, and the existential despair, take a second to like this video and subscribe. But only if you actually enjoy these ridiculous journeys into history's most unforgiving eras. And, as always, let me know in the comments where you're watching from, and what time it is for you. I love knowing who's joining me on these late-night catastrophes disguised as educational content. Now, dim the lights. Maybe grab a blanket. You'll want the comfort. Because tonight, we're going back to when the biggest threat wasn't your inbox overflowing. It was literally everything around you. Welcome to the Stone Age. Let's see how long you last. You wake up, not because you're ready, not because you're well rested, but because the ground is literally stabbing you in the back. There's no bed, no pillow, no cozy blanket you forgot to wash 6 months ago. Nope, just dirt and rocks. And something that may, or may not, be a bug crawling up your leg. The sun is rising slowly, as if it knows there's absolutely nothing urgent going on today. No meetings, no emails, no snooze button for just 5 more minutes. Your body woke up because, well, it's cold, it's uncomfortable, and your lower back is already filing a complaint with HR. Except, guess what? There's no HR, no office, not even a Starbucks. You sit up groaning like someone twice your age. Your feet hit the ground, bare, raw, completely unprepared for the horror that is prehistoric landscaping. Every step is basically stepping on a Lego, except the Legos are made of sharp rocks, thorny branches, and some kind of animal poop you'd rather not investigate further. You look around. Trees, more trees, maybe a suspicious bush. No signs of civilization, no streetlights, no Wi-Fi, not even a single power outlet in sight. Just you, nature, and the crushing realization that you are not going to make it. Your stomach growls. Of course it does. No fridge, no protein bars, no delivery apps. Your options are hunt something, forage for mystery berries, or, well, starve. Let's be real. You're probably leaning toward the third option because, honestly, you don't know how to hunt. You don't know how to fish. You barely know how to cook pasta without Googling it. You decide to walk a bit, see if there's anything edible nearby. Spoiler, there isn't. Your feet are already regretting every life choice that brought you here. You trip over a root, obviously, and now your knee is bleeding. Perfect. No Band-Aids, no antiseptic wipes, no mom, can you help me? Just the sweet, sweet sting of nature letting you know you're not welcome here. Then salvation. A tiny red berry right there on the ground, like a little gift from the forest. You pick it up, inspect it with all the expertise of someone who once watched a documentary on the Discovery Channel. Is it poisonous? No idea. Are you going to eat it anyway? Obviously. You toss it in your mouth. Immediate regret. It's bitter. Like, aggressively bitter. But it's too late. You chew, swallow, and sigh dramatically. Somewhere in your brain, A voice whispers that this was probably a terrible idea, but you're too hungry and too exhausted to care. Now you're thirsty. Great. No water bottles, no fancy hydration packs, no trendy metal straw. Just the vague idea that maybe there's a stream somewhere, but you have absolutely no clue how to find it. Follow the sound of water? Please. You can barely hear your own thoughts over the internal screaming of your survival instincts. You stumble along, hoping for a miracle. Spoiler. No miracles here. Just more trees and more rocks. Oh, and did I mention the bugs? They love you. You're basically the Stone Age all-you-can-eat buffet. You sit down on a log, already exhausted, and it's not even lunchtime. If lunchtime is even a thing, because now time itself has lost all meaning. The sun is climbing, your throat is dry, your feet hurt, your knee is bleeding, and you're starting to get the sneaking suspicion that maybe, just maybe, you weren't born for this whole primitive human thing. And you know what's the best part? You haven't even had to deal with predators yet. Those are out there watching you from a distance with hungry eyes and zero empathy. A wolf? Maybe. A bear? Could be. Some saber-toothed feline with knives for teeth? Probably. Meanwhile, you can't even handle a bitter berry and a blister. You think about making some kind of rudimentary weapon. You've seen this in movies. Grab a stick, tie a rock to it, boom, a spear. But no. The rock falls, the stick snaps, and you realize you have absolutely no idea how to even start doing this. And even if you did, do you honestly think you'd have the guts to face a prehistoric animal armed only with a twig? Yeah, didn't think so. By now, you realize you also need shelter. The sky's getting brighter, and you remember, it's going to get cold at night. Very cold. But how do you build a shelter? Sticks? Leaves? Mud? You start gathering some materials, but everything feels clumsy and useless. Your makeshift hut collapses with the slightest touch, and you suddenly feel like lying down right there and letting natural selection do what it does best. You look at your hands. Dirty, scratched, with tiny cuts. You look at your clothes. If they can still be called that, torn, covered in leaves and mud. And then, in a rare moment of clarity, you admit it. You've been defeated. By nature, by discomfort, by the complete absence of anything that makes life remotely tolerable. You stand up, half out of strength, half out of stubbornness, and walk a bit more, tripping over yet another root, just to keep the tradition alive. The day has barely started, and it already feels like an eternity. You wonder, how much longer until the day is over? But of course, you don't have a watch, no calendar, not even a clue of how much time has passed since you woke up. And it's at this moment that you fully and irreversibly understand. You wouldn't survive even one day in the Stone Age. There's no tutorial, no easy mode, no pause. Just real life, raw, brutal, and completely indifferent to your existence. But the most tragic, or comedic, part of all this is that, despite all these failures, you're still a modern human, with all the technological advantages and comforts imaginable. As long as you're not here. Here, in the Stone Age, you're just another lost animal, poorly adapted, silently regretting every single choice that led you to this exact moment. And so begins, and quite possibly ends, your brief and glorious Paleolithic journey. So, you've decided to take a little walk. Bold move. Brave, even. Except, there's just one tiny, insignificant problem. You don't have shoes. Not boots, not sandals, not even those hideous toe shoes that make you look like a frog but at least protect your feet. Number. You've got nothing but your soft, uncalloused, extremely unprepared 21st century feet. You take your first step and immediately realize this was a terrible idea. The ground is not your friend. It's not even neutral. It's actively hostile. Every rock, every stick, every thorn is a personal attack on your souls. You thought stepping on a Lego was bad? That was child's play. This is the real deal. Nature's version of a medieval torture device. You hobble along pretending it's fine, that maybe you'll get used to it. Spoiler, you won't. Your feet are already screaming, "Why are we doing this?" But do you stop? Of course not. You keep going because, well, what's the alternative? Sit down and cry? Sure, but then you'll just be a stationary target for whatever prehistoric predator is lurking nearby. You try to avoid the sharpest rocks, stepping carefully, cautiously, but it's pointless. The ground here is basically designed to hurt you. Every few steps you wince, then mutter something like, "It's fine, it's fine." But it's not fine. It's very much not fine. Then, as if it couldn't get worse, you step directly onto something wet and squishy. You freeze. Is it mud? Animal droppings? The remains of something that lost a fight with a bigger something? You don't know, and frankly, you don't want to know. You lift your foot slowly, look down. Yeah, let's just call it organic material and leave it at that. At this point, your feet are scratched, bruised, and probably infected with 6 different types of bacteria that haven't existed in your world for thousands of years. Congrats. You're now one with nature, whether you like it or not. You pause, considering your options. Maybe you could fashion some kind of primitive footwear. Like, grab some leaves and tie them around your feet with vines? You've seen that in movies, right? Sounds clever. Except, when you actually try it, the leaves tear immediately, and the vines cut into your ankles like sadistic shoelaces. So now, not only do your feet hurt, but you've also added some nice chafing and possible rope burn to the mix. You sit down on a nearby rock, contemplating your life choices. This was supposed to be an adventure, right? A chance to prove you could survive in the wild. But here you are, defeated by basic terrain, before you've even made it to lunch. You look at the horizon. More rocks, more sticks, more things waiting to ruin your day. You sigh dramatically because, let's face it, there's no one around to judge your over-the-top reaction. It's just you and the overwhelming, endless pain radiating from your feet. Then you think, maybe I should just toughen up. After all, early humans didn't have shoes either. And sure, they didn't. But also, they were basically walking calluses with legs, hardened by generations of constant abuse from the elements. You, on the other hand, wear socks indoors. You attempt to stand up again, bracing yourself for the inevitable agony. Yep, there it is. That sharp, stabbing pain that makes you question every decision that led you here. You shuffle forward, each step a negotiation between your will to survive and your desire to just lie down and let nature finish you off. As you limp along, you can't help but notice how absolutely everything around you is designed to be as inconvenient and uncomfortable as possible. Twisting roots hidden under layers of leaves, jagged stones poking out just enough to trip you, and of course, the occasional surprise puddle of something foul-smelling and probably toxic. By now, your feet are numb. Or maybe they've just given up sending pain signals because it's too exhausting. Either way, you're no longer walking. You're sort of dragging yourself forward in that awkward, half-hopping, half-stumbling gait that screams, "This person is not okay." You consider climbing a tree, maybe to get a better view of your surroundings, or just to sit somewhere that isn't trying to destroy your feet. But then you remember, you don't know how to climb trees. The last time you did that was probably in elementary school, and even then, you fell and cried for an hour. So that's out. You sigh again, louder this time, because why not? If you're going to be miserable, you might as well be dramatic about it. You limp forward, hoping, irrationally, that there's maybe a patch of soft grass ahead. But of course, there isn't. Just more of the same relentless, unforgiving terrain. At this point, you start fantasizing about shoes. Not just any shoes, the most comfortable, cushioned orthopedic sneakers money can buy. You think about how wonderful it would feel to have some arch support, some padding, some anything. But all you have is the harsh reality of bare skin against prehistoric Earth. Finally, after what feels like an eternity, but is probably only 10 minutes, you sit down again, utterly defeated. Your feet are a mess, your morale is in the gutter, and your grand adventure into the wild has been reduced to a pathetic game of how much pain can I tolerate before I just give up completely? And that's when it hits you, once again, as if it wasn't obvious already. You wouldn't survive a day in the Stone Age. You can't even survive a walk. Welcome to the infinite pain of having no shoes. And you've only just begun. All right, so you've made it through waking up on a rock and shredding your feet into prehistoric ground beef. What's next on your thrilling journey of Stone Age survival? Oh, that's right, hunting for food. Because apparently in this era, no one's heard of snack bars. You look around like you're in some kind of nature documentary, half expecting a helpful narrator to explain what's edible around here. But no, there's no soothing British voice guiding you, only the deafening sound of your own stomach growling and the distant rustle of something. You pick up a stick, your mighty weapon, and imagine yourself as some kind of primal warrior. Maybe you can spear a rabbit, or better yet, a giant bird. You squint into the wilderness like a predator. But let's be real. You look less like a hunter and more like someone who got lost at a summer camp. Suddenly, movement. A rabbit darts out from a bush. Your instincts kick in. By which I mean, your heart starts racing, your palms get sweaty, and your brain goes completely blank. You lunge forward, swinging your stick wildly, and miss by about, let's say, 3 meters. The rabbit is already gone, probably laughing at you from some burrow. You stand there, panting, holding your weapon, realizing that you are, in fact, a complete joke. But you're determined, because what choice do you have? You keep walking, scanning the environment like some kind of survival expert, even though the only thing you're an expert in is ordering extra guac at Chipotle. After an hour of stumbling through the woods, tripping over more roots and getting slapped in the face by several low-hanging branches, you spot another potential target. A bird, perched on a branch, completely unaware of your presence. This is your moment. You creep forward, raising your stick, ready to channel your inner apex predator. And then, the branch you're standing on snaps loudly under your weight, startling the bird, which immediately flies away in what can only be described as a smug, mocking arc through the sky. You sigh, staring at the empty branch, realizing yet again that you are woefully outmatched by even the smallest, dumbest creatures in this environment. By now, you're tired, hungry, and more than a little frustrated. You decide to try the classic set a trap approach. After all, how hard can it be? You've seen cartoons. All you need is a stick, some rope, maybe a rock, and... Oh wait, you have none of those things, and zero knowledge of how traps actually work. You look around for materials, find a few twigs and some vines, and spend the next half hour assembling what might generously be described as a pile of sticks. You stare at your creation with a mix of pride and confusion. Then realize, even if this worked, you wouldn't know how to reset it, or what to do with the animal if you actually caught one. At this point, you're not even sure if you're more afraid of starving to death or accidentally succeeding and then having to deal with a terrified, possibly rabid creature. You sit down, rubbing your temples, and wonder how on earth humans ever survived this long. Your ancestors did this every day, with actual skill, while you can't even chase down a rabbit without falling flat on your face. Just then, you hear a rustle nearby. You freeze. Maybe, just maybe, this is your chance. You grip your stick tightly, your pulse racing. The bushes part, and out waddles a tiny hedgehog, completely oblivious to your presence. You contemplate your options. Could you theoretically take out a hedgehog? Probably. Should you? Absolutely not. First of all, it's adorable. Second, it's covered in spikes, which frankly sounds like a bad time for both of you. You lower your stick, watching it amble away slowly, living its best prehistoric life, while you sit there, the defeated apex predator of absolutely nothing. Another hour goes by, during which you succeed only in stepping into a mud puddle, dropping your stick, and accidentally getting stung by some kind of insect that definitely wasn't in your 21st century allergy profile. Now you're limping, itchy, and somehow even hungrier than when you started. You glance up at the sun, trying to gauge how much time you've wasted. But of course, you have no idea. All you know is that your stomach is still growling, your hands are scratched up, and your weapon is now just a broken stick you're using as a walking aid. Eventually, you give up. Not because you want to, but because you have no other choice. The forest has won. Nature, 1. You, 0. You plop down on a rock, sigh heavily, and finally admit the obvious. You are not a hunter. You are not a gatherer. You are just here, sitting in the dirt, covered in scratches, sweat, and shame. And the real kicker? You're still hungry. Welcome to the glorious tradition of human survival. And no, you wouldn't survive a day in the Stone Age. Not even close. So, after your wildly successful hunting expedition, in which you caught absolutely nothing except a bruised ego and a mild rash, you realize that night is coming. And with night comes cold. Real cold. Not that cozy. Oh, I'll just throw on a hoodie kind of cold, but the kind of cold that makes you question whether your body will even function tomorrow. Naturally, your first thought, fire. You need to make a fire. It's basic survival 101. You've seen it done a million times in movies. People just bang a couple of rocks together and boom, instant campfire. Easy, right? You search around and pick up 2 random rocks that, in your expert opinion, look good. One is sort of flat, the other is just a rock. You sit down, take a deep breath, and begin your journey to becoming a fire god. Clack. Nothing. You hit them together again. Clack. Still nothing. Okay, maybe it's about speed. You start hitting faster with more enthusiasm. Clack, 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 clack. Still, absolutely nothing. The rocks are just kind of dull, like they're mocking you with their complete lack of spark. You pause, frowning, and think, maybe I need dry grass or some kind of tinder. Yes, that's it. You've seen that on survival shows. So you gather some leaves, a handful of what you hope is dead grass, and place it carefully in a little pile. Then you go back to your rock-banging extravaganza. Clack, clack, clack. After about 10 minutes of this, your hands start to hurt. The rocks are not smooth. They're jagged and unfriendly, much like the environment you're currently trapped in. You look down at your fingertips, already raw with little scrapes forming. You take a break, wiping sweat from your brow, looking at your pile of sad, lifeless grass, and wonder how in the actual Stone Age people managed this. Were they just better? Stronger? Smarter? Probably yes, yes, and yes. But you're not giving up yet. Oh no, you've made it this far. By which I mean, you haven't yet been eaten by a wolf. So you keep going. This time, you try striking the rocks at a different angle, thinking maybe it's all about technique. You feel pretty proud of yourself for even thinking that. Clack. Hey, was that? You squint at your pile of grass. Did you just see smoke? You lean in closer, heart pounding with excitement. Could it be? Then you realize, nope, that wasn't smoke. That was just a tiny puff of dust kicked up by how aggressively you've been smashing these rocks together. You sit back, disappointed but not surprised. At this point, your hands are officially throbbing, your arms are tired, and your mental state is somewhere between mildly annoyed and full existential crisis. You look up at the sky. The sun is getting lower. The shadows are getting longer. The cold is creeping in. You mutter to yourself, people used to do this every day? Apparently, yes. And they did it well enough to survive for thousands of years, while you can't even get a single spark. Desperate, you start hitting the rocks together in increasingly random ways, just hoping for some kind of miracle. Fast, slow, hard, gentle. At this point, you're willing to try interpretive dance if it'll make fire happen. But no. Just more dull clacks, more sore hands, more existential dread. After what feels like an eternity, but is probably only 20 minutes, you stop. You stare at your little pile of grass, which is now just a flattened mess, completely unburned, completely useless. You sigh, leaning back against a tree, your fire-making tools slipping out of your hands like the dreams of survival you once had. The air is getting colder by the minute, and you realize that you're going to have to spend the night without fire, without warmth, without light. Just you, the darkness, and the increasing likelihood of hypothermia. Congratulations. At this point, you start mentally negotiating with yourself. Okay, maybe I don't need fire. Maybe I'll just curl up in a ball, stay really still, and my body heat will keep me alive. Sure, let's go with that. You try to find some more leaves to make a kind of blanket. It's not exactly down-filled luxury, but it's all you've got. You pile them up, lay down, and pull them over yourself like a sad little woodland creature preparing for a very uncomfortable hibernation. You close your eyes, shivering slightly, thinking about how different this could have been if you'd just been born in, say, literally any other time period. But no, you're here, in the Stone Age, failing spectacularly at the most basic human tasks. Fire? Nope. Shelter? Barely. Food? Still hungry? Comfort? Non-existent. You open your eyes, staring up at the darkening sky, and accept, with the full weight of your freezing body, that you are not cut out for this. Not even close. Welcome to the Stone Age, where everything is hard, nothing is convenient, and your ancestors are probably rolling in their prehistoric graves watching you right now. So, it's a new day. You've somehow survived the night, despite the fact that you had no fire, no blanket, and no basic survival skills. Your back hurts, your hands are still raw from your little fire experiment, and your feet. Well, let's not even talk about your feet. But there's no time for self-pity, because your stomach is now in full revolt. It's growling so loudly that you're pretty sure it just scared off a nearby squirrel. You need food, immediately. You think back to every nature documentary you've ever half-watched while scrolling on your phone. Early humans foraged for roots, berries, and edible plants. Sounds simple enough, right? You stand up, dust yourself off, and set off on your first foraging mission. Within seconds, you realize you have absolutely no clue what you're doing. Every plant looks like it could either be food or something that will send you into a violent allergic reaction. You spot some leaves. They're green. That's good, right? Everything healthy is green. You pick one, sniff it, and immediately gag. Smells like death. Hard pass. Then you see something on the ground, a thick, gnarly root poking out from the soil. Aha, you think, feeling like some kind of prehistoric chef. You dig it up with your bare hands, which now look more like paws after all the cuts and dirt. You wipe off the root, take a tentative bite, and immediately regret every decision that led to this moment. It's bitter, like aggressively bitter. Your entire face contorts in protest. But you chew through it anyway, because what choice do you have? Starve? So there you are, sitting on the ground, gnawing on what might actually be poison, like some kind of desperate woodland creature. You keep looking around, hoping for something, anything, better. Then you see it, a bright red berry hanging from a bush. It looks kind of like the ones you get at the farmer's market, except this one isn't in a cute little biodegradable carton. It's just there, wild and possibly deadly. You hesitate for a second, then pop it in your mouth because honestly, at this point, what do you have to lose? It's sour. Your eyes water a little. But hey, at least it's not as bad as that root. You gather a few more berries, eating them cautiously, silently praying that they won't cause instant death, or worse, explosive gastrointestinal distress. So far, so good. You're still upright, not vomiting. A win. You sit down, feeling mildly victorious, but also still hungry. You start wondering, how did early humans get enough calories doing this? How many roots would you have to eat before you felt full? The answer, you realize, is way too many. And that's assuming you don't accidentally munch on something toxic. You glance at your hands, now stained with dirt and berry juice, and sigh. This is your life now. Digging up roots, eating questionable plants, and playing a daily game of, will this kill me? You look around and think, maybe I should try hunting again. Then you remember your last hunting attempt, swinging wildly at a rabbit and getting outsmarted by a bird. Yeah, maybe not. You lie back on the cold ground, staring up at the sky, stomach still grumbling, mind slowly accepting that this paleo diet is less about getting shredded abs and more about desperately trying not to starve. You think about all those modern fitness influencers who swear by clean eating and ancestral diets. Right now, you'd kill for a processed snack. Anything. A protein bar, a bag of chips, heck, even some stale crackers. But here you are, chewing on tree parts. Suddenly, your stomach makes a sound that can only be described as a warning. Uh-oh. You sit up quickly, looking around for somewhere private. Welcome to the less glamorous part of survival. The part those nature documentaries conveniently skip. After handling your business, you return to your spot, now even more aware that everything you're eating could turn on you at any second. You sigh deeply, leaning back against a tree, feeling weak, a little dizzy, and still very, very hungry. The day drags on, and you keep scavenging small, barely edible things, getting just enough energy to keep moving, but never enough to feel satisfied. At one point, you consider trying to fish. You've seen people do that with their bare hands in movies. But then you realize, you don't even know where water is, let alone how to catch a fish with your own incompetent fingers. So you keep eating roots, because that's all you've got. By sunset, You've consumed approximately half a pound of questionable vegetation and feel not great. Your stomach is making sounds no human stomach should ever make. But you're still alive. Somehow. You lie back down, staring at the sky turning orange, then purple, then black. And you realize, this is it. This is your diet now. No carbs, no sugar, no caffeine. Just roots, berries, and existential dread. Welcome to the paleo lifestyle. And no, it doesn't get better. After yet another fulfilling meal of bitter roots and suspect berries, you realize something critical. Night is coming. Again. And based on your experience from last night, shivering under a sad pile of damp leaves, you've decided it's time to level up. You need a shelter. How hard can it be? People have been building shelters for literally tens of thousands of years. Some of them even did it while being chased by saber-toothed cats. So surely you, with your modern brain and extensive experience assembling IKEA furniture, can figure it out. You look around, assessing your resources. There are some sticks, some leaves, a few larger branches, and that's about it. You grab a big stick and start dragging it across the ground like you know what you're doing. You don't. But it feels productive, so you keep going. Soon you've gathered a respectable pile of branches and assorted foliage. Now what? You stand there, staring at your pile, waiting for inspiration to strike. It doesn't. So you decide to wing it. You lean one big branch against another, forming what you optimistically call a frame. It immediately collapses. Okay, no problem. You try again, this time pushing the base deeper into the ground. Success. It stays up for about 3 seconds before tipping over and smacking you directly in the shin. You curse under your breath, rubbing your leg, and remind yourself that it took humans thousands of years to master architecture. You've been at this for, 10 minutes? Patience. You keep going, determined to prove you can at least create something that looks vaguely like a shelter. After about an hour of sweating, grunting, and improvising with questionable knots made of vines, you stand back and assess your creation. It's technically a structure. A few branches lean together, some leaves scattered on top for insulation, and a nice pile of rocks that you convinced yourself is for stability. But really, it just looks like you gave up halfway through and decided to make a rock pile instead. You crawl inside to test it out. Immediately, you realize it's about as effective at keeping out the elements as a paper napkin in a hurricane. The roof has gaps big enough to drive a prehistoric elk through, and the walls are basically decorative at this point. But you tell yourself, hey, at least it's something. Then the wind picks up. Your roof flutters dramatically, and within seconds, one of the main branches collapses, followed by another, until your entire shelter is reduced to a sad pile of sticks, much like your dignity. You sit there, covered in leaves and frustration, contemplating whether it's even worth trying again. You glance at the darkening sky, the approaching cold, and realize, yeah, you have to. So you gather up the branches and attempt version 2. This time, you decide to make it lower to the ground, thinking it might be more stable. Spoiler, it's not. It's just harder to get into, and once you do, you realize you've basically built yourself a coffin. A very uncomfortable, very drafty coffin. You crawl out, sigh dramatically, and sit on a rock, staring at your latest failure. The sun is setting fast now, and the temperature is dropping with every passing minute. You start frantically piling leaves into a corner, figuring that maybe, just maybe, if you can't build a shelter, you can at least bury yourself under enough organic matter to survive the night. You lay down, covering yourself with handfuls of soggy leaves, convincing yourself that this is totally fine and not at all pathetic. As you lie there, shivering and itching from who knows what that's now crawling through your leaf blanket, you think about all those survival shows where people build elaborate shelters with roofs, walls, and even little doors. Meanwhile, you're lying in a pile of wet compost, hoping it doesn't rain. You close your eyes, take a deep breath, and accept that once again, nature has won. Your shelter has failed. Your survival skills are non-existent. And tomorrow, you get to do this all over again. Welcome to the Stone Age, where even your best effort isn't good enough, and everything you build falls apart. It's nighttime. Again. Honestly, you're starting to lose track. Every day feels like an endless loop of hunger, failure, and existential dread. But here you are, once more, curled up under your impressive architectural masterpiece, the leaf pile. You'd think that after surviving multiple nights in the prehistoric wilderness, you'd feel a little more confident. Maybe even a bit rugged, like one of those bearded guys on survival shows who make everything look so easy. But no. Instead, you're lying here, wide-eyed, clutching your trusty stick, fully aware that your greatest accomplishment so far is not choking to death on a poisonous berry. And then it hits you. The predators. You've been so busy trying to not starve or freeze that you almost forgot about them. The real reason why humans developed anxiety in the first place. Because out there, beyond the dim perimeter of your pathetic pile of sticks, something could be watching you. You don't know what. You don't know when. But you know. The classic primal fear kicks in. That deep evolutionary response programmed into your DNA from countless generations of ancestors who got eaten because they weren't paying attention. Your hearing becomes sharper. Every rustle, every creak, every random shift of leaves sounds like the approach of something big. Something with claws, something with teeth. Your brain helpfully starts listing all the things that could kill you tonight. Wolves, bears, big cats, maybe some kind of prehistoric mega hyena. Sure, why not? And you're lying here in what amounts to a biodegradable sleeping bag made of moist leaves, hoping that whatever's out there doesn't have a taste for terrified humans. You squeeze your stick tighter, as if that's going to help. Let's be honest. If something really wanted to eat you, you wouldn't stand a chance. Running? Out of the question. Your feet are already destroyed, and your stamina has been steadily declining since day one, which, let's face it, was your peak. Climbing a tree? You've already accepted that's not happening. Besides, the last time you even thought about climbing, you nearly sprained your ankle tripping over a root. Your only real option is to lie completely still and hope that predators, like T-Rexes in movies, can't see you if you don't move. You close your eyes, trying to focus on your breathing, but it doesn't help. Every time a branch snaps somewhere in the forest, your eyes shoot open and your pulse spikes. You start imagining the eyes, glowing in the dark, fixed on you, slowly moving closer with each heartbeat. Then there's the sound. That subtle, almost imperceptible rustle of something large moving through the undergrowth. You hold your breath, straining to listen, your mind now a chaotic mess of scenarios, none of which end well for you. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's just the wind. Or maybe it's something crouching just beyond the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to pounce. You try to convince yourself that no predator would waste energy on such a meager meal, that you're all bones and desperation at this point. But then you remember, predators aren't picky. And here you are, lying on the ground, giving off all the signs of easy prey. Your heart is now pounding so hard you're surprised the entire forest doesn't hear it. You consider making some noise, like yelling or banging sticks together, like those camping tips you once read online. But then you remember, if there's nothing out there, you'll just be the weirdo alone in the woods yelling at nothing. And if there is something out there, well, congratulations, you just rang the dinner bell. So you stay silent, paralyzed by indecision and fear, gripping your stick like it's a magic wand that can repel death. Minutes drag into hours. The night feels endless, like some kind of cruel joke the universe is playing on you. Occasionally, you hear something moving, just enough to keep your cortisol levels dangerously high, but never enough to confirm if it's real. You start imagining yourself as a footnote in some future archaeological report. Human remains found in primitive shelter. Cause of death: fear. At some point, exhaustion begins to take over, pulling you towards sleep despite the adrenaline surging through your veins. You fight it, terrified that if you close your eyes, you won't wake up. But eventually, your body betrays you. Your eyelids get heavy, your grip on your stick loosens, and you drift off into a fitful, shivering sleep, punctuated by vivid dreams of being chased through dark forests by creatures with far too many teeth. Hours later, you wake up abruptly, gasping, convinced for a split second that something is biting your leg. But no, it's just a leaf. You sit up, blinking at the first light of dawn breaking through the trees. Miraculously, you're alive. No claw marks, no teeth marks, no prehistoric predator dragging you off in the middle of the night. Just you, your stick, and your rapidly crumbling sanity. You let out a shaky laugh, partly from relief, partly from sheer disbelief that you've made it this far. And then it hits you. You're going to have to do this again. Tonight. And tomorrow night. And every night until... who even knows? Because in the Stone Age, the predators are always out there. Always invisible. Always silent. And always waiting. Congratulations. You've made it through several days in the Stone Age without dying from exposure, starvation, or being dragged off by a predator. That's impressive? Sure, let's pretend it is. But now comes a new challenge. One far more terrifying than predators, hunger, or even making fire with rocks. Social interaction. Because today, as you stumble aimlessly through the woods, gnawing on your last questionable route, you spot something unexpected. A group of people. At first, you can't believe your eyes. People, civilization, other actual human beings who presumably know how to survive without turning their feet into raw hamburger and their hands into sandpaper. For a moment, you imagine that this is it. The turning point. They'll welcome you in, show you their secret techniques for catching fish, making fire, building actual shelters. Maybe they even have blankets? You approach, cautiously, your heart racing. But as you get closer, you realize something crucial. You are not part of this tribe. You don't look like them. You don't smell like them. Although, let's be honest, you all smell pretty bad. Most importantly, you don't know their rules. The tribe notices you. They all stop what they're doing, which, from what you can tell, involves smashing things with rocks, weaving some kind of net, and cooking something that honestly smells like roadkill. For a moment, there's a tense silence. You try to break the ice with what you think is a friendly wave. No reaction. Then, in a burst of social bravery, you say, "Hi." They stare at you blankly. Right, of course. Different language. No shared vocabulary. No cultural context. Just a stranger. Dirty. Awkward. Probably looking like they've been lost for years. You attempt what you believe is a universal sign of peace, raising your hands slowly and showing your palms. One of them, a large, muscular individual covered in animal hides and what looks like mud war paint, steps forward. The others stay perfectly still, watching. You realize very quickly that this is not going to be like your friendly neighborhood block party. The large one, clearly the leader, circles you slowly, eyeing you up and down with a mixture of curiosity and clear judgment. You try to stand tall, but you're painfully aware that you look like you just lost a fight with a shrubbery. After a long pause, the leader grunts something incomprehensible and gestures to your makeshift weapon. You look down at your stick, realizing that it's about as threatening as a pool noodle. He bursts out laughing. The rest of the tribe joins in, and just like that, you've become the evening's entertainment. You chuckle nervously, pretending you're in on the joke, but deep down, you know, you're not. One of the smaller tribe members walks up and pokes at your clothing, then at your shoes, or what's left of them, then sniffs and makes a face. You can't even argue. You know you smell like a mixture of fear, sweat, and disappointment. The leader hands you a stone tool and points toward a pile of animal hides. You assume they want you to help. So you kneel down, grab one of the hides, and start hacking at it with all the finesse of someone using a steak knife for the first time. Immediately, the group erupts in another round of laughter. Apparently, you've just violated some unspoken rule of hide preparation. The leader steps in, takes the tool from your hand, and shows you how it's done. Slow, careful strokes, not whatever chaotic stabbing you just attempted. You nod, embarrassed, your cheeks flushed with prehistoric shame. Later, they offer you a place by the fire, handing you a chunk of something roasted. You're too hungry to ask questions. You just bite. It's tough, gamey, and probably something you'd rather not think about too much, but hey, it's calories. As you eat, they begin a communal ritual. Rhythmic stomping, clapping, grunting in unison around the flames. It's beautiful in a primal, intimidating way. Then someone gestures for you to join. Panic sets in immediately. You stand, shuffle toward the group, and start clapping along, horribly offbeat. You step left when everyone steps right. You stomp when they clap. You grunt when it's clearly not grunt time. Someone in the back starts laughing quietly. You try to adjust, but by now it's clear. You are the out-of-sync weirdo ruining their sacred ritual. Eventually, you sit back down, defeated, your face hot with embarrassment. As they continue the dance with perfect coordination, you stare into the fire and come to a sobering realization. You don't belong here. Not with these people, not in this world. They have their own rules, their own rhythm, their own way of being. And you're just the awkward modern human dropped into their world, fumbling through their customs like someone showing up to a formal dinner in a swimsuit. Later, as the fire burns low and the tribe settles in for the night, you lie back, staring up at the star-filled sky, reflecting on your place in this ancient society. The truth is hard, but undeniable. You will always be the outsider, the one who doesn't know the customs, the one who can't make a decent tool, the one who almost fell into the fire during the dance. Welcome to the Stone Age social scene, where fitting in is harder than surviving, and public humiliation is just part of the daily routine. By this point, you've pretty much accepted that you're bad at everything required to survive in the Stone Age. You can't hunt, you can't gather, you can't build a shelter that doesn't immediately fall apart in a light breeze. You can't even participate in a simple fire dance without becoming the tribal equivalent of an embarrassing viral video. But now Now it's time for nature to really rub it in. The weather. Up until now, it's been annoying but manageable. A little too hot in the day, a little too cold at night. Sure, you've shivered a bit, maybe sweated through your sad makeshift clothing. But nothing you couldn't handle, right? Well, buckle up, because nature is about to unleash its ultimate reminder that you do not belong here. It starts with the sky changing, slowly at first. You look up and notice that those cute, fluffy clouds from earlier have turned into ominous, brooding slabs of gray. But you, being the eternal optimist you've been forced to become, think, hey, it'll pass. Spoiler, it doesn't. In fact, it does the exact opposite of pass. The wind picks up. The trees start swaying aggressively, as if they know what's coming and are warning you. You're not ready for this. You look around nervously, but of course, there's nowhere to go. Your shelter, which was barely functional in good weather, is now laughably inadequate. Then the first drop hits. Just one at first, right on your cheek. Kind of refreshing, actually. Then another. Then 10. Then the sky completely opens up, and within seconds, it's like standing in the world's most aggressive outdoor shower. Except there's no temperature control and no drain. Just mud, mud, and more mud. You sprint to your shelter, but it might as well be made of wet tissue paper. The leaves and branches sag under the weight of the rain, collapsing almost immediately, leaving you exposed to the elements, soaking wet and shivering violently. The water pools at your feet, rising quickly, turning your sad campsite into a prehistoric swamp. But it's not just the rain. The temperature drops too. Fast. You go from mildly uncomfortable to on the verge of hypothermia in about 5 minutes flat. Your fingers are too numb to even attempt rebuilding your shelter. Not that it would make any difference. Everything around you is drenched and useless. So, you do the only thing you can. Hunker down, curl up into a ball, and hope that your body heat can keep you alive long enough for this storm to pass. The wind howls through the trees, bending them like they're made of rubber, snapping branches that come crashing down dangerously close to where you're curled up. You realize that in addition to freezing to death, you might also get crushed by a falling tree. Awesome. You try to shift into a safer position, but the ground is so slick with mud that you just end up sliding slightly downhill, coming to rest in an even deeper puddle of cold, filthy water. At this point, you're beyond shivering. You're just shaking violently, your teeth chattering uncontrollably. And then it gets worse. Because as if the freezing rain and gale-force winds weren't enough, nature decides to throw in some thunder and lightning for dramatic effect. A massive crack of thunder booms directly overhead, so loud that you instinctively scream and cover your head, fully expecting the next bolt of lightning to zap you right out of existence. But it doesn't. It just keeps raining, and thundering, and freezing. Time becomes meaningless as you sit there, soaked and miserable, questioning every decision that led you to this moment. You wonder how your ancestors dealt with this. How did they not just collectively give up? How did they build shelter strong enough to withstand this madness? How did they stay warm? How did they keep from just lying down in the mud and letting the elements take them? Eventually, after what feels like several lifetimes, the storm begins to ease. The rain slows to a drizzle. The wind calms. And miraculously, a weak sun begins to break through the thick canopy above. You sit up slowly, every joint aching, your clothes plastered to your skin, your entire body caked in mud and leaves. You're alive. Somehow. Barely. You look around at what used to be your camp. It's destroyed. Your shelter, gone. Your fire pit, washed away. Your dignity, long, long gone. You stagger to your feet, squelching through the mud, and try to assess your options. But there are none. You're still cold, still wet, still exhausted. And you know with absolute certainty that this will happen again. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe tonight. Because in the Stone Age, weather isn't a minor inconvenience. It's an existential threat. A constant, unpredictable force that doesn't care if you're tired, hungry, or on the brink of giving up. It just is. And you, standing there like a soggy, broken parody of a survivalist, are utterly powerless against it. Welcome to prehistoric weather, where nature always wins. And you, well, you're just here for the suffering. So here you are, drenched, exhausted, starving, covered in mud, bug bites, and what you suspect might be a rash forming from all the questionable plants you've rubbed against in the last 72 hours. You've spent what feels like a prehistoric eternity attempting, and failing, to do the most basic survival tasks. Make a fire? Nope. Catch food? Only if food includes gnawing on inedible roots and praying you don't get poisoned. Build a shelter? You call that heap of soggy sticks and leaves a shelter? Please. And now, after days of this, you finally reach the ultimate stage. Acceptance. You are not, nor have you ever been, built for this life. Not mentally, not physically, and definitely not emotionally. You sit there, on yet another cold, wet rock, staring out at the vast, uncaring wilderness, thinking about how far human beings have come. Your ancestors, the tough, resourceful Homo sapiens who tamed fire, hunted mammoths, crossed continents, they survived this. They did it without Gore-Tex jackets, without waterproof tents, without bug spray, protein bars, or even the simple pleasure of hot coffee. They lived and died by their wits, their strength, their endurance. You, on the other hand, are out here losing your mind over the fact that your socks have been wet for 3 days straight, and you haven't seen a flush toilet in a week. You realize, with crushing clarity, that every modern convenience you take for granted is not a luxury. It's the only thing standing between you and certain death. And you know what? That's fine, because let's be real. You didn't sign up for this. No one ever looked at a smartphone or a microwave or an indoor shower and thought, ugh, I wish I lived in a time when everything wanted to kill me. At least no one who's actually been out here in the wild, cold, lonely, miserable Stone Age nightmare you've been living in. The truth is, your place is not here. Your place is in a world where food comes wrapped in plastic, where walls keep out the weather, and where the most dangerous predator you might encounter is an aggressive pigeon in a city park. You think back to all those romanticized ideas about the simple life, living off the land, being one with nature. It sounded so peaceful in theory, but in practice, it's an endless slog of hunger, discomfort, and the constant awareness that every living thing, from a grumpy bear to a tiny venomous spider, could end your life at any moment. You sigh deeply, leaning back against a tree, which immediately drops a cold, wet leaf directly onto your face because, of course it does. At this point, you can't even muster the energy to be mad. You just wipe it away with the sleeve of your dirt-encrusted makeshift tunic and close your eyes. Maybe, just maybe, you think you could adapt. Maybe if you stayed here long enough, you'd get tougher. Learn to recognize edible plants, figure out how to make a real shelter, even sharpen a stick into something more deadly than laughable. But then you remember, this isn't a TV show. There's no film crew waiting to pull you out when things get too rough. No one's going to come rescue you when you inevitably eat the wrong mushroom or get hypothermia from yet another surprise rainstorm. No, this is survival. And survival, as you've discovered, is much less about heroic feats of strength and much more about quiet, miserable endurance. You realize that all those modern skills you're so proud of, typing at 120 words per minute, making perfect avocado toast, navigating the subway system, are absolutely useless out here. What you need is an intimate knowledge of animal behavior, foraging, tool making, and fire starting. And you have none of that. So you do what any rational person would do in your situation. You accept it. You accept that you would not survive a day in the Stone Age. Not even a full 24 hours. Honestly, it's impressive that you've made it this far on pure stubbornness and sheer luck. You take one last look at the sprawling prehistoric landscape around you. The towering trees, the distant mountains, the faint sound of some mysterious creature moving through the underbrush, and feel a strange mix of awe and complete, utter defeat. And then, in true modern human fashion, you fantasize about the comforts waiting for you back in your real life. A soft bed, a hot shower, a pizza that arrives at your door in 30 minutes or less, electric lights that don't require you to smash rocks together for hours in the dark. You chuckle to yourself, a little delirious from hunger and sleep deprivation, and stand up slowly, stretching your sore limbs one last time. This was never going to work out. You were never meant to be a hunter-gatherer. You were meant to be exactly what you are, a highly evolved, highly dependent creature of comfort, technology, and civilization. And there's no shame in that, because the fact that you even attempted to live like this, even for a moment, is absurdly impressive in its own right. So, as the sun sets once more on your Stone Age odyssey, and the cold air settles in around you, you offer a quiet salute to your ancestors, the ones who endured, who struggled, who survived. Thanks to them, you don't have to. You don't have to hunt mammoths. You don't have to sleep in mud. And you don't have to worry about being eaten by a saber-toothed predator while you're just trying to take a nap. Your survival is already guaranteed by thousands of years of human progress. And that, you realize, is a beautiful thing. So when someone says to you, "I think I was born in the wrong era," you'll know the truth. No, you weren't. You were born in exactly the right era. The era where survival doesn't mean wrestling nature into submission, but simply ordering delivery and binge-watching your favorite show under a warm blanket. The Stone Age was not for you. It never was. And that's perfectly fine.